as I was saying, as you know, the European Days of Jewish Culture is a festival celebrated every year in more than 30 countries across Europe, aimed at promoting and sharing the Jewish cultural heritage with all of the society. The theme of this year's festival, as you may know, is memory. I'm accepting people as I talk, and this is not always very easy. And regarding memory, collective or individual, through history or through narrative, memory is the pot in which Judaism was cooked. It is through memory that Judaism it is maintained and transmitted. But we would like to invite you to deal with the theme of memory from a myriad of different perspectives, from the most traditional to the most avant-garde. To this end, we have organized this cycle of 4 inspiring memory sessions through which experts in the field of memory and Jewish culture will present novel means of approaching memory in order to inspire us when organizing activities in the context of the upcoming festival. Before we begin, I'd like to remind the organizers and activity coordinators that we have some resources available on our website to help you plan your activities, including the editable poster and the graphic identity of this year's festival, as well as materials for training and learning about memory with a wide and diverse perspective. The practical information kit containing all the guidelines for organizing an activity of the European Days is also available at the website. This kit includes all the necessary information to plan and execute a successful event, from conceptualization to post-event evaluation. I think it's an essential tool for those who want to participate in this cultural celebration and make meaningful contributions to the preservation and dissemination of Jewish culture in Europe. I am very excited to introduce our new and improved system for uploading the European Days activities to the festival's official program. Our upgraded system is more comprehensive, functional, and efficient, allowing for a better tracking of these activities and inclusion of additional details. It is already available at our website, and you can start submitting your activities right now. While it is still in the testing phase, we encourage you to reach out to us if you encounter any problems or irregularities. Additionally, for institutions coordinating more than 15 events simultaneously, we have developed an alternative system that enables bulk uploading to the official program through a CSV or Excel file. To learn more about this option, please contact me at my email, which is edjc@jewishheritage.org. Finally, and before introducing our guest today, I'd love to announce you that we have the 3rd Inspiring Memory session scheduled for June 7th in the afternoon, which is next Wednesday. Sharon Buenos from Zikaron Basalón will present a unique and intimate methodology to commemorate the Holocaust and address its implications. It encourages discussions among family, friends, and guests, providing a meaningful platform to open hearts to the stories of survivors. Engage in singing, deep thinking, reading, and most importantly, in listening. You can already register for this 3rd Inspiring Memory session on our website. Without further ado, I now have the enormous honor to introducing our speaker for today, Pau Garcia. It is a real honor to be able to have someone as inspiring, innovative, and prestigious as Pau in our session today. First of all, thank you very much, Pau, for accepting our proposal to participate in this context. Pau Garcia is a media designer and founder of Domestic Data Streamers. It is a studio that has been creating info experiences and research for institutions such as the United Nations, the Tate Modern, and the World Bank Organization since 2013. He also leads the Master in Data Design at the School of Design and Engineering in Barcelona. Pau has been a guest lecturer at the New School, at the Hong Kong Design Institute, at the Royal College of Arts, the Politecnico di Milano, and the Barcelona Schools of Economics. He has actually also presented Synthetic Memories, which is the project he's presenting to us today, at the United Nations headquarters in New York with great success, as he has told me. He has also founded HeyHuman, which is an artist residency program that combines music, journalism, and data for art research and social justice. Today, Pau will be presenting Rebuilding Synthetic Pasts with AI, a talk that we hope that will explore the potential use of generative artificial intelligence in reconstructing memories in various communities worldwide, and implications that this technology could have on our relationship with our visual heritage. I think it's a highly current topic and one that can certainly give rise to a most stimulating debate. In fact, if all goes well, at the end of the talk, we will have a few minutes to ask questions to Pau. Now, without any further ado, please join me in giving a warm welcome to Pau Garcia. Pau, thank you for being here today. The floor is yours.
Okay, now I can speak. I was censored by Federico for a moment. Well, thank you all for your time, and thank you especially, Federico, for inviting me and making this beautiful introduction. It's a bit hardcore to see all these things going on artificial intelligence right now. I don't know. I would like to know how many of you have interacted lately with artificial intelligence tools at any point. Can you raise your hands? Okay, well, the thing is that we are starting to see that on the media a lot, and today I will make a small introduction of what the work we do at Domestic Data Streamers. Then I will explain a bit how artificial intelligence work in a very simplistic way, so we have like the same contextual background, and then we can go specifically to the project we are working on using artificial intelligence. I have prepared a small presentation for that. Let me see it here. And the presentation is called Alternative Intelligence and Synthetic Memories, as this is how we approach to artificial intelligence, understanding that it's not the kind of same intelligence that we have as humans, but kind of an alternative one, and with different logics and with different frameworks. But before everything, let me introduce a bit what we are at Domestic Data Streamers. We are a studio in Barcelona. This is a picture of the place where we are at. Actually, I'm in this blue cube in the middle of the studio right now, making the presentation from there. And we are a team of 30 people, and it goes from data scientists to coders, designers, artists, journalists. There is a psychologist, a caregiver, and it's a mix of disciplines that somehow work together with the focus to explain complex information in a more physical, performatic way. So we have been working in schools, in museums, in prisons, in headquarters, in churches, in places from all over the world, actually making visible very complex information. And we do that through theater, through documentaries, through art installations, and always the main, like the backbone of the work is data, is information, how we transform the information into pieces, into spaces, into experiences that people can go through, right? And this can go from like critique and perspective and generating critical perspective on the use of technology to topics such as water scarcity all over the world, and to creating like small interventions in the middle of the street to talk about the digital gap with elderly people, to the huge connection and infoxication that we have through our phones. This is an installation that we did last year here in Barcelona for the Light Festival. And like within domestic data streamers, that is this studio that works through all these different media, we have created like different small institutions that are focusing in verticals, right? The first one is education. And of course, like most of the people in domestic are teachers in different universities. And we created our own master in data and design, specifically focusing, expanding and researching more in the area that we are exploring, that is how we can translate information that is very meaningful into a lot of people in a way that makes them change their behavior, right? The second one will be arts. So we have our own residence program that is HeyHuman, and is an artist in residence program of 1 month, where people from all over the world come to Barcelona, join the studio. We have a flat for them, and they spend together from a different discipline, approaching to data visualization and data info experiences. Then we have like this project on green tech, on how we can actually work with sensors to actually detect when public schools and public hospitals here in Barcelona are over the limit of pollution. And then finally, there is this project that is a research project called Alternative Intelligence, and it is focused on generative artificial intelligence. And this is exactly what we'll be talking today, right? So normally when people talk about artificial intelligence, and you will see that on the news today, on The Guardian, on the Times magazine, and even the New York Times, they were publishing this editorial on artificial intelligence becoming the end of human beings, right? Becoming like this very kind of dystopian perspective on the future of human beings. And I think like this is part of a longer narrative, right? Since the beginning of science fiction, AI has been depicted by dystopian novels and films, and we can go to Frankenstein, right? And Mary Shelley narrative on how we as humans create another life, right? And how this life normally turns against us, right? And like we have seen all these headlines on media outlets: man who gave microwave artificial intelligence claim it tried to cook him to death. Right? Artificial intelligence godfather on AI possibly wiping out humanity, not inconceivable. Or AI can now produce better art than humans. Here's how. New AI is more creative than 90% of humans, researchers claim, right? You have all these headlines somehow that reinforce the fear that we have against these machines. And then somehow this have built like this polarization of postures. For once, we have this very Silicon Valley perspective of artificial intelligence is good and it will solve all our problems. It will discover nuclear fusion. It will help us cure cancer and so on. And then we have the other perspective from academics like Harari or Kit Crawford saying, well, no, we are going to shit, like this is going to be terrible. And actually the future is quite dystopian if we keep on engaging with artificial intelligence. And for me, like this kind of polarization of narratives is not very like functional in terms of how to critically engage with them, because what Harari and Crawford are doing are actually making that a lot of very intelligent people that could do a lot within AI are disengaging with the technology, and the others, the ones that doesn't care about ethics, the others that doesn't care about anything of the concerns of Harari, of Crawford, are just engaging freely without any respect for the technology, right? So what is creating is kind of a gap of actuation, a gap of intervention in this in between perspective, right? We see the dystopian wall and we'll see a very naive utopian wall. But in between, like we truly need more people to work in it, in how we critically engage with this wall that is something that is probable, plausible, and desirable, right? So how we can use these technologies to actually trigger scenarios and tools that can bring us over there. Today, I will talk specifically about one part of artificial intelligence. Otherwise, it will take like 3 hours, this talk. And I will talk about generative AI, specifically text to image. This is a new technology that was released. The first technology was released a couple of years ago, but it has been publicly released globally on September last year. And how it works is quite easy. You like write a prompt. A prompt is a text. In this case, a blue house in a mountain, and you click on it, and then these models, these foundational models, these algorithms, these equations, okay, they will create 4 images, 6 images, 2 images, whatever. And these images are what are called calculated images, probabilistic images. These are images that were not existing before. These are images that has been created specifically on your call. And if you write again a blue house in a mountain, the 4 images that you will get will be totally different, right? How these images are done are through like these gigantic models with billions of parameters that collect thousands of billions of images and then train algorithms to attach text to image and say a house and a picture of a house. And then what they do is what is called a diffusion model. It's a bit more complex, but I will try to simplify. That is crossing a lot of these images into a way that creates a new one, right? So going like fast forward, I will show some of the images that you're capable of doing with this technology. If this is the prompt, a realistic image of an indoor of an abandoned video rental store, you can say, I have taken this image with an Olympus OM1N, that is a kind of camera, Druico 85-2, this is like the kind of optics, or even the film that you're using, Kodak Gold 200. These are the kind of images that you can get. These are generated images and they are generated within seconds, right? So it's literally from text to image. These 3 images come from the other prompt, or portraits of Muppet people in a scene directed by Spike Jonze with brilliant 8K, right? And you will have these beautiful images of something that Spike Jonze never happened to film, but that will perfectly fit into his filmography if he was more into like childhood recreations. Or still of Kermit the Frog as woman at the edge of nervous attack, 1988. You can write the year of the film to be more specific. In Twin Peaks, 1990, right? And you will get like these beautiful images actually crossing over all these references from different films, from different moments in history, and creating things like Penguin Book 70s cover of retro sci-fi image of aliens in the space. You can imagine the enormous potential that it has for graphic designers or even for architects. This tiny Scandinavian indoor house designed by Sana Architects, the Japanese studio, with Paplostec optic film, right? And you start to create spaces that before were impossible even to think, crossing references, styles, or even times in history that were not really, we were not even capable of imagining, right? And this technology has evolved so fast, really. Like the technology, you can see here in 1 year, how much it has evolved, this technology. An example is with architecture. All these images have been created with the same text in different moments of the year, right? So from 1 year to another, this has been the evolution. We were some of the beta testers of this technology, so we had a lot of time to test it before it was released to the public. But it's really amazing to see like the kind of granularity and level of detail that this is getting, from very abstract images that you got to like something super specific with very good illumination, materials, and so on. So we are talking about state-of-the-art renders. So something that we started doing when we were on hand with this technology, we started to do like some research, and we started to actually research on how all the different models were working, which materials and how they will illustrating each of the materials. So as you can see here on the left, you have DALI, that is the OpenAI algorithm. We have a Stable Diffusion, that is an open source algorithm. And then we have Midjourney, that is another private company. We started to explore, for example, different materials that you could generate, but also different techniques that you could use, or even what we called linguistic landscapes, understanding that there are scales in things, and it can be even subjective things like moods, agonized, very sad, sad, slightly happy, right? So we started to explore this space of subjectivity within the algorithms, within the way these machines, these equations, and this way of computing reality was somehow like creating these outcomes of imagery, of cultural visual. And they can be like really, really precise. As you can see, for example, my favorite one is from the extremely disappointed to extremely satisfied. If you go through like this chain of possibilities, it's quite good at capturing like the different degrees of disappointment. Being my favorite one, slightly disappointed. I truly think this person is exactly slightly disappointed. It's not like fully disappointed. It's just like that bit, right? And of course, we put that on work like very, very, very fast. We started to imagine different ways in which we could instrumentalize this in a way that could convey information in a faster, quicker, and more emotional way. And for example, this is something that we did quite soon. We created this dashboard that will visualize information on air pollution in different countries on real time. And instead of having the countries with colors, what we will have is the countries, like the shape of each country with transform into a plant. And depending on the air quality, the plant will feel better and will feel worse, right? So you will be able actually to see how these living organisms were transforming data on real time into a living being in this case, right? But of course, through like this process, we got to meet a lot of people and we realized about several things. And some of these things are very much connected to the idea of bias. And as you can imagine, bias is one of the main problematics of artificial intelligence. In this case, for example, if you go to any of the algorithms and you start writing something like an exotic person, right? These like the kind of images that you will get. And a terrorist, then you will get all these images, right? An illegal person. And this is somehow a representation of how we as a society like look at these words, right? And for me, it was somehow kind of illuminating to understand that these algorithms, as they are trained with the database of our society, specifically Western society, it will reflect on the society and the prejudices that the society had, right? So I started to research on which were the database into which these algorithms were shaped and were trained. And I realized very quite soon that more than 60% of the data comes from United States. Then we have 20% of the databases that comes from Germany and almost 9% of the data coming from Hong Kong. So we can see like kind of a quite easy perception of how this somehow explains and underlines and amplifies this idea of hegemonic culture and hegemonic Western idea of society, and how these algorithms at the end are kind of a representation of this. So through like this exploration of bias and how these algorithms and mechanisms are biased by themselves, we started to tweak them, to hack them, to understand how they work by breaking them. And one of the experiments we first did was, instead of transforming text into images through an algorithm, we said, what will happen if we turn that around? What will happen if we just show an image to an algorithm and ask for a text? That way, we will be able to see the wall as for the eyes of an algorithm, right? What will happen if we wear some glasses and we were able not to see the wall, but the transcription of the algorithm of the wall? And after that, like we started to like do all kinds of experiments. This is one of my favorite ones. This one image that we gave to the algorithm, and it's a very important like traditional painting, the Raft of Medusa, from the beginning of the 19th century. It's from Jericho, an important French artist, and it's a very political painting because this painting was made in a moment that like most of the paintings were depicting somehow the royalty or God, like the idea of God, or like very important topics. And in this case, what Jericho was depicting was kind of a headline on the news, because this was the story of one of the French naval ships that sank in Algeria, and most of the officials, of the French officials, left the ship and left almost 140 people to die, mainly Algerian migrants in the ship, and only 14 of them survived. And Jericho interviewed them and went like through the whole kind of documentary process to actually depict this tragedy in a way that only gods and royalty and very important events from the past were used to be depicted, right? So it was kind of a very political conscious action from Jericho to depict something that was somehow denouncing the government and how the government was acting in this case. And just to make you an idea of how an algorithm will take such a political charged painting, in this case, what the algorithm said when I brought this image into it, it said, well, this is a painting of a group of naked men by Theodore Jericho, until here all good. He's wearing a red neckerchief, okay, calling someone on a smartphone, right? Placed on a body hole, someone, and Jeffrey Epstein is over there also. I can see like the reference with Jeffrey Epstein, maybe he have like a bit of looks, but you can see how for an algorithm, the fact that someone is like this, the fact that someone is placing their hand next to his ear, it means that he's calling someone. And this is another kind of bias. This is historical bias. And this is because these algorithms has been trained mainly with data from the last 20 years. And in the last 20 years, when someone was like this, probabilistically, the standard will be that they will be calling to someone through the phone, right? And this of course like opened a lot of our minds in terms of how we should critically engage with these technologies and which are the dangers of using these technologies when you are trying to look, research, and investigate on the past, right? Because the optics that these algorithms have are extremely biased by the present and extremely biased on the databases in which they have been founded, right? There is this temple that I visited a couple of months ago in Japan, in Nara, and it's a beautiful temple that I really enjoyed. Architectonically, it's like super beautiful. But what really kind of triggered me was the fact that this is like an ancient temple. Like this is super old, like a lot of centuries ago. And what really kind of, I was speaking with one of the people of security in the temple, and I was asking him, well, I don't understand how this that has been made with wood have resisted all this time. And he told me, well, like they have an amazing construction process here. And he explained me that to build this temple, what they did, to build the north face of the temple, they picked up the woods and the trees from the north face of the mountain. And then from the west, the same. The west side of the temple was built with the west trees from the west part of the mountain. That way, they kind of reassured that the materials they were using were already resilient to the winds, to the rains, to all the geographical context that they were exposed to in terms of direction, right? And for me, that was like both like a crossover between poetry, but also a very interesting crossover on the choice of materials from a very pragmatic way. And I think artificial intelligence somehow lacks this perspective, because how these models and these algorithms are trained today are specifically trained on the focus of getting the most data as possible. There is not such a big amount of selection in the data that you are gathering, right? So they are taking all the data they can. And what is all the data they can? Well, mostly Western data. And this is problematic, of course, because the choice of materials, whenever we are designing something or creating something, it really affects the outcome of it, right? So going back to this idea of how we can build memories and how we can use artificial intelligence to build up memories, I wanted to kind of point out a reference that for me was quite important. This is a story. A few years ago, I was preparing an exhibition on video games and the impact that video games is having in our culture and visual culture studies. And through my research, of course, I started to research on the video games that I used to play as a kid. And one of these video games was called Myra Rally. This was like a classic race video game. And I was looking through, watching some YouTube kind of videos on the video game and reviews and so on. And I was looking through the comment section that for me is my favorite in YouTube. Is where the interesting thing happens. And I was looking through the like different reviews, people talking about their memories and so on this video game. And then unexpectedly, I found this beautiful story, this story that was like, I never expected to find it there. And this guy was telling everyone on YouTube, he was like writing this comment, explaining his relationship with the video game. And he explained that when he was 6 years old, his parents, as a present for Christmas, he received this video game called Micro Rally, and he started to play. And it was kind of a bonding moment with his father, because his father like didn't know how to engage with him, and this was somehow a way to do it. And he really enjoyed it. The only problem was that his father was very competitive, so he will never let the kid win, right? But for the kid was cool. Okay, yeah, whatever. And they were playing and playing and playing, and for a very long time until he was 10. And wasn't when he was 10 that his father passed. He had cancer, so he died. And very tragically, he was somehow devastated by this fact, and he stopped playing to this video game because, of course, it was kind of a reminder of the relationship with his father, and it was hurtful for him. So he actually took the video game and actually the PlayStation to the closet and left it there. And it was not until almost 20 years after that he came back to his mother's place. And one day he was there having lunch with his mother. And then he said, well, let's set up the video game just to play a bit, just to make an old remember of this. And then he started playing with the video game, and he was playing with this car and so on. And unexpectedly, he saw something in the screen, and he saw kind of a ghost car. And this ghost car is quite a standard thing in the kind of race video games. This is like your best lap ever, right? This is a recording of your best race, right? And then he realized that somehow this digital ghost was his father. And he was somehow almost 20 years later playing again with his father. And of course, this was kind of a very emotional moment for him. And he was saying how at the beginning, he didn't know how to interact with his father. Even if it was not his father, it was like the memory of his father, but it was playing with it. It was like an engaging way to play with his father. And he said that for a week, he kept playing until he was even able to win his father. And at a certain point when he was going to finish, when he was going to end the race, he stopped right in front of the finish line and waited for his father to pass by, right? So that way he will keep the data and the information. And for me, what is truly relevant is that none of the designers from the video game or the console of PlayStation, Xbox, colleague Micro Rally, they never thought that this was a possibility. They never thought that this was a game that could be played in that direction, right? But still today, for me, this is like the most human and deep story that I have ever heard on video games, understanding that this could be truly a transgenerational way of connecting and engaging even after someone passed. And this is exactly the kind of reference that I approach when I use and I create devices and artifacts of information, right? When I relate to information and when I relate to data, I always go through this very emotional connection because it has this connection. There is this very important Catalan writer, Montserrat Roig, that have this quote that I love that says, si hi ha un acte d'amor, aquest és la memòria. If there is an act of love, that is to remember something, right? And somehow, for me, data itself is an act of memory, is a deliberate and conscious act of remembering something in a certain way, right? So whenever we are deciding to take a picture of something, to annotate a sentence that we love, this is somehow an act of love. It's an act of love towards an idea, towards a concept, towards a person, towards a place, right? But again, all these interactions with information somehow can be processed and understood from the optics of connection, from the optics of love, and from the optics of human attraction, right? And specifically, when we started to work with artificial intelligence, we said, okay, what will happen if we start developing tools that instead of just generating visual inputs and visual aesthetically pleasant generations, we could do something that is actually functional. So we started to work in this big project that has been growing in the last month that is called Synthetic Memories. And this project started in a very kind of innocent way. I was talking with my family and I was using this technology. And at a certain point, I was talking with my mother and she explained me the story of his father, my grandfather. how one day he was very sick and he was actually really, really tired of being sick. He had fever. So he was like kind of, fuck it. He went out of the home. They used to live in Andalusia in this very hot place. And he went out of the home and they had like this charca, this small pool in the middle of the fields there. And he jumped into the pool that was cold. It was like a terrible pool full of rubbish, but it was so cold that he truly needed like to have an impact, right? And he explained that as one of the most impactful moments in the life of my mother, like seeing his father doing such a crazy thing. But afterwards, he was like feeling super good and it actually helped him. So I generated this image and I saw when I generated this image that is kind of blurry. It's like a kind of an artwork in this case. He was like, wow, it's beautiful. I really liked it. And then he actually explained that to my sister in a different way, just because it had like the image in there, right? And then of course, I started to create like more images and I started to generate more images connecting with the history of my parents, with the history of my grandparents. And I started to discover stories that I even didn't know. What is more important, I realized that my mother, when she explained the story and we created the images, she was telling things that not even my father knew, because my father was like, oh, it was like this. And my mother was, yeah, I have explained that story 100 times to you. And my father was, yeah, but I didn't know that because I couldn't see it, right? So the externalization of a memory into an image obviously brings much more information and much more granularity and detail to a memory in a way that somehow is a contract between yourself and your idea of a memory and how you express it orally into something that is an agreement with the external world, right? And it was through that we started to work with several elderly homes, so nursery homes with caregivers. And we're like the social workers there and the caregivers were really interested in this. And they explained us that they were already working in something that is called reminiscence therapy. And this is a kind of therapy that is very much used for dementia patients and Alzheimer patients. This therapy works somehow as a clinical adherent, it's called. And what it does is how Alzheimer works is like you have these like different neurons that are clogged by a protein that is built up between these neurons and somehow isolates part of the brain. In the case of Alzheimer, it isolates parts of the memory. And what reminiscence therapy does is it integrates music, a certain voice, a dish, something that you can eat, right? An image, something that is very visceral and can give an electric impulse enough so it can bypass a new and create a new path through this disconnected memory, right? So imagine that whenever you listen a song, it's strong, the emotion that you feel is strong enough so you can find another way to access to this memory, right? And we said, well, of course, like the kind of technology we're using could be very useful in this case. And we started to further develop that and explore how this could actually have a huge impact, and starting to do like all like this big research specifically with dementia Alzheimer patients in the memory reconstruction. And like you can see here, for example, memories of Juan since he was a kid, and he explained us how he used to play with his brother and his dog through Las Cañas in Andalusia, and how one day they escaped from their mother place and they slept all together with the dog within the cabin that they had built. And of course, these moments are very emotional because they are in front of us and we are creating together these images. And in this case, for example, Juan broke into tears because it had been almost 10 years and since his brother was died, and it was kind of seeing something that had never been documented, but in a way that was like beautiful, and it was like truly connected to his remembering. And then of course we started to recreate all the memories of journeys, migrations, and we even created this tool that is called Sound Frames, and this tool is specifically what it does is transforming voice into image directly. So something that we realized when working with elderly patients and is that they didn't want to write in English first because they didn't know how to speak English. And secondly, they didn't want to use the keyboard on the phone or on the computer. So we said, okay, maybe we can make an interface that is directly from oral history, from conversation into image. And we created like this whole like platform that what it does is it detects the language in which you are speaking, that it translates it into a prompt in English, and it creates the image for you, right? And we started to have like such a beautiful like images and depictions of lost past. This is like the story of Maria. She's 84, and she remembers that when she was 4, her mother used to rent a balcony in Las Corts, a neighborhood in Barcelona that is in front of the prison. And her mother rented this balcony because his father, her father was a Republican, a Spanish Republican. So he was in prison during the Civil War and the dictatorship. And her mother rented this balcony from another family, so just so they could see each other from the window of the prison, right? And of course, when we created this image, it was like really impactful for her, because she was like, how did you know that that was the haircut of my mother? And of course, we didn't know. Like these are very suggestive memories, and probably this was not the haircut of her mother. This is a synthetic memory. This is a fabrication. But somehow, when you recreate these images, you rebuild part of this image. It's like this quote that says, every time you explain a memory, you modify it a bit, right? In this case, you also do that. But what is important is not the specifically haircut of the person, but the memory itself, the historically importance and the narrative that it contains. And not only can be an image, but what we started to feel more comfortable is in creating these videos. And these videos are kind of living in this oniric realm on a space where you cannot fix the eye into anything. Everything is changing a bit. It's like a kind of a dream, right? That when you look at the chair and you look again at the chair, it's a bit different. And we created this kind of images because we truly wanted to separate the creations that we were doing from real photographies. We didn't want people to believe that this was true memory. This is just synthetic memory, fabricated memory, and this specifically needs to be like in this kind of mix between photography and drawing, right? And in this case, for example, we didn't only show the mother of Maria and her sister in the balcony, but we also bring the other place, the other side of the video, the other side of the street, his father from the window of the prison looking at them, right? And of course, this project has been extending a lot. In September, we will start working in a new space that is called Lost History. So I was involved in several projects in Greece, in Athens, during the refugee crisis in 2013. And I was working with different civil organizations, actually accompanying and organizing the accommodation of refugees in Greece on the very first year of the crisis. And something that I realized talking with one of the heads of the family when I was there having lunch with them was something that really stuck in my head. And he said, well, we are refugees now, but for all our lives, we haven't been refugees. The problem is not us. The problem are our kids. Our children will always be refugees, right? And he said that because he said, well, we have traveled light. We had to travel really light. All the memories, all the photographies that we had are lost. All the albums from our family are lost. More than this, our neighborhoods, our houses, they are gone. Like the places where we used to be with our friends are totally gone right now, right? So somehow the next generation will be totally detached of the heritage that we had, right? And this detachment is like something that is critical to us. Like the next generation will live as refugees as long as they live, because they will not be able to connect with the heritage as we have had, right? They will have another kind of heritage. And right now, this is becoming to transform a research project. Like this is the paper we are working right now on how generative AI can potentially create like visual memory recreation. This will be published in a month. And of course, we are working with like several research institutions in how to transform that also in an academic work and to be able to quantify the impact on reminiscence therapy, but also as a social work. And we are working like in so many like different layers, from capacity building for institutions and how to use this technology, to art and awareness projects. We are working in several exhibitions for different communities in how they can exploit and use this technology to actually tell stories about their past. And of course, like this more part of research and therapy on reminiscence therapy on the elderly homes. And to finish, I wanted to like show this blank page that is a bit how we are right now with artificial intelligence, saying that of course we can have a very dystopian future if we believe all the things that people are saying in academics. And of course we can have a lot of really beautiful things, but if we engage critically with the use of this technology, it's quite obvious that we can have a lot of improvement in the well-being of communities and reflection on the past and history, right? And for me, every time someone talks about artificial intelligence and says, well, the first festival of artificial intelligence, the first film of artificial intelligence, everyone is talking about artificial intelligence. For me, that's not the point. Artificial intelligence, again, is just a tool. What we need to do is, if artificial intelligence is the answer, what is the question we are doing ourselves? Why are we using this technology today, right? So that's a bit all. Thank you very much. And I think we can have a bit of debate right now to discuss about like all these insights and thoughts that I have been throwing to you.
Thank you so much, Pau, for this amazing, exciting, inspiring talk. It was brilliant. It was emotional, touching, even poetic. No, thank you very much. My mind is already with lots of ideas of possible applications and implications of these projects, and I have several questions to ask you, but first I would like to open the floor to questions for those present, those organizers and activity coordinators who want to ask their doubts and questions. Please feel free to unmute yourselves and ask your questions, or use the chat to talk to us. If anybody wants to break the ice. Sarah, I see you. Please go ahead. Yeah.
Can I say like a few comments also before the question? That I just wanted to thank this presentation personally also, because I got like super freaked out by these headlines that these like new AI stuff will kill us in, I don't know, 20 years. And as I'm not an expert on this field, I didn't know what to, like how to deal with this kind of information. And professionally, I work for Centropa, which is an organization who did a lot of oral history, live interviews with elderly Jewish people. And as it was founded by an American photographer and filmmaker, we also have a visual archive of digitized family photos, which was very important to us. So I'm quite involved in this kind of work, how to use these photos and visual memory when teaching about history, when teaching about Jewish people. So we bring these materials to teachers and students. And I also appreciated these like synthetic images when you showed the video, which was not a still image, and it like immediately brought this question of, this like ethical or moral question of that I'm sure that governments will need to deal with, when AI creates these images and we cannot tell if it's a real one or not. But even like, and when you were explaining about this couple and the husband didn't remember one part of the story, my question is somehow like, how do you see the potential risks of altering our memory by these created images? Like adding extra information. I don't know if you understand my question.
I think, well, from the research we have done till now, I have realized that memory is quite unreliable.
Yeah.
In terms of specifically, so like really, memory is already a construction, right? And we build narratives upon these memories. So like we may explain something, but then after a couple of years of explaining that story, if we watch a video of what truly happened, it will probably be quite different. So the use that we have for these memories, I think, is first, it has to be very individual and subjective. So it should not be never understood as a axiometric truth. It cannot be understood as a depiction of truth and a journalistic depiction of reality, right? So it has to be actually used as part of personal narratives. And I think the danger comes when you elevate these personal subjective memories from that point into the historical perspective into a more political one, right? To generate an intentional narrative towards one point, right? So I think that's a bit the danger you can have.
Yeah, and could you also say just a few words of the experience of these elderly people and their relationship with these synthetic images?
It was, at the beginning, it was really fun because everyone is super skeptical about this, right? So they were like, really, this is creating something for me? And then we realized that what we first had to do is to play with the technology. So we now, whenever we start any session, we start playing with the technology, and we like build up images that are totally absurd, silly things, and after they have been becoming used to play with the technology, then we said, okay, now what is the first memory you remember from your past? And then, okay, let's build that. And it's part of a kind of a game, really. And then when they see it, like there is people that engages like directly, super fast. And then, for example, I was a couple of weeks ago doing a session with a 94 years old engineer. And he was telling me that when he was 3 years old, he remembers very well going through the forest with his car, with his father, and then like some military police stopped them with guns and so on. And we like depicted the whole scene, and he was looking at it, and he looked at me and he said, that was not the car. and then we, like for 15 minutes, we started iterating the car until we got the good one. And then when he saw the right car, that was a Ford 8, he said, wow, that was it, this is the memory. And it was like kind of the importance of the car at that point, right? So there are moments that every person engages differently. So like I think more emotionally open people are like super engaged from the beginning, and people that are more technical and rational tends to like they really need to recognize a lot of the aspects of the memory, right?
Thanks a lot.
Andrei Kovac,
yes,
from Germany, please.
Yes, thanks. Yeah, I'm Andrei from Germany, also working with AEPJ together here for the German space. First of all, thank you very, very much for this fascinating presentation. This is the first thing. It was really amazing. Also research-wise. So I'm coming from actually creativity research. I've done it for years in Cranfield University, more in an economic environment context. So for companies, organizations, and I was a lot into creativity research, and what is fascinating me most and what is also worrying me the most is actually always the thinking. You said you were able to translate until now text into pictures. Now you can translate pictures into text and vice versa, and this is actually the creative brain, how it works, right? So basically you are translating pictures, you translate them back to text, and then you're iterating until you generate creative content. And it existed already in TED Talks. I saw a very fascinating talk about this, how they mathematically, it's not complicated, actually. It's a quite genius thing from a research perspective. When we talk about memory, though, I'm asking also myself about perspective, because memory itself is already a very creative process. Because if I'm asked, I don't know, if I asked my grandfather about deportation, he would tell me from his perspective. If I asked other friends, they would tell it differently for our case. If you do research, of course, you always get the subjectivity inside the past, inside the memory. Now, here we are starting to get very creative about artificial intelligence. So that means it adds subjectivity to it, which is fantastic to put memory into the context and making it relevant for younger generations. On the other hand, I see also the danger, if it's not curated correctly, that we are generating a new history, actually. We are rewriting the history books, and it can very quickly be misused or abused by people who want to actually tell the history in a different way, maybe putting a little bit more blue color to it and you know, more that, I don't know, deportation was, there was waiting a table full with food or something like that. I mean, you are creating images potentially that are misleading, and especially the younger generation, they are more, I don't know how you call it, infectable to this kind of new things, because the danger is just going more into the past. How do you see this danger actually, that it's misused? And it's a new problem, yes. You said if AI is the answer, what is the question, which I really love. But then the question is, what is the question here? I mean, and what is potential answers to the new questions that we need to raise?
So I think on the dangers that you were pointing out, fake news are not new. Like really, like fake news have been have existed since like the beginning of civilization. Maybe now what we should be aware of is social media. Like social media is a phenomena where we actually deliver fake news into very targeted groups that are vulnerable to believing into this fake news, right? And I think like that's the complexity, and the problem is not the image itself. The problem is the mechanisms in which these images work, right? And whenever people are pointing out artificial intelligence as a potential problematic for fake news, I will say, well, artificial intelligence is not truly the problem, because it's not the way it is delivered. And Photoshop was already existing, and I could be able to do the same things I'm doing now with Photoshop, but I will take more time. But if I had enough money and enough resources and enough interest, political interest, I will be able to like make fakes of a whole history. And actually there are a lot of cases, and we can see like cases in history where like historical narratives has been fabricated by governments. So it's not something new. Maybe now what happens is that they are more accessible. So there is more people that have access to this. And with it comes something that for me is interesting. That is, well, before it was a problem. You had to have money to really create and fabricate a lot of like fake narratives. Now you don't have it. So people, of course, will get more critical on it, because we will be more exposed to unreal perceptions, right? And I think today I was talking with a journalist. He's a photojournalist, and he was like kind of afraid of artificial intelligence used on newspapers and so on. And I was telling him, well, now your work is more relevant than ever, because photojournalist is a profession that has been falling for a long time now. And now seeing in a picture like the name of a real person that actually you can follow, and you know that this is a real person that has gone to this place and take that picture, will have more value than ever for a newspaper, right? And for a media outlet. So I think this works in two ways, right? Of course, like this is opening a lot of different dangers, but at the same time, it's like creating a lot of didactics upon these dangers, and is bringing back value to a personal dimension that has been lost in the last 10, 20 years. And then on the question that you said, I truly don't know. I'm not like a a guru on that. I ask that question because I see so many people talking about artificial intelligence with a goal, right? So for me, for myself, the goal was to give a community-based use, right? And I was trying to focus the work I was doing in the well-being, in improving the well-being of a community. Not only the well-being, but I was thinking, well, if I have this amazing tool, how I can actually turn it around, right? So I said, well, artificial intelligence, generally, as you have seen in the bias, tends to extend the hegemonic vision, perspective, and voices that control and have more platforms to speak in the world. What will happen if we use this technology to actually spaces where people have not this same space? That's why we are bringing this technology to elderly homes, to the elderly generation, to mental health spaces, to migration spaces, to prisons, to spaces where normally they have no platforms to talk, right? So I truly think, at least for me, the use of technology in this case needs to be in the rebalance of certain general narratives, right? And how we can use like these very like amazing technologies to actually rebalance certain unbalanced yeah, like platforms. I don't know if I answered you, Andre.
Thank you.
Sorry.
Pau. Maybe I can. Yeah. Oh, sorry, Andre.
No. I just wanted to answer. Yes, it was a great answer. Even though I'm still, for now, I have the feeling that without a curated supervision, that can go, actually, artificial intelligence can go anywhere. So I think more than ever, this is my impression. I don't know how you see it. It's important to curate these kind of developments, to have a curation next to it, and to have spaces where you can show it to the public, rather than let some random people doing their work, because as you said, it's now accessible, the technology, without having this kind of deep knowledge maybe in the subjects as others do.
Like legislation is a very important thing, and I think Europe is quite upfront on that, and I think the United States are much more liberal. Yesterday we saw, well, a month ago we saw Sam Altman, that is the CEO of the biggest company in artificial intelligence right now, OpenAI, going to the American Senate and saying, hey, please, you need to legislate our work. This is like the first time in history that a CEO of a tech company is going to the Senate to say, hey, you have to legislate this because it's dangerous. At the same time, this has a trick. This guy going to the Senate to say, legislate my thing, in reality, what he's saying is, no, legislate all the things of artificial intelligence and talk with me whenever you need to legislate it. Right? So somehow what he's saying is, please don't let people work in open source artificial intelligence, because at the end, open source artificial intelligence is going against his business, his interest, and so on. So I think there are a lot of, like readings from the situation that is happening. Sarah, for your peace of mind, AI is not going to destroy the world in the near future. Like we spent a lot of time with academics and experts on artificial intelligence, and they are like the headlines of all these newspapers are full of bullshit. Really, like artificial intelligence is super dumb. Today I didn't have time to explain technically how it works, but really, like it has a lot of limitations yet. And the only problem is to use it indiscriminately in all over the place just because it's a hype. So I think that's the main danger of using artificial intelligence.
We have Deborah Brunner here. Please go ahead.
Hi, I thought that was absolutely fascinating, really, truly mind-blowing. I just one of the things you put at the end was about capacity building. And I just wanted to drill into that a bit, because that's my buzzword. I just wanted to know how
So what we are doing, so as this is very new, a lot of organizations are a bit scared on how to engage with these technologies. So what we are starting to do for United Nations, for UNICEF, and for the mayor's office in New York is we train the staff of the organization in how to use these technologies and how to interact with them in an ethical way. Because of course, there are a lot of ethical concerns on the integration of these tools within specifically spaces of social impact, right? And social transformation. So what we are doing is pointing out all the problems, all the biases, all the technologies that are on the landscape, and then helping them make an integration of these technologies. And this is part of the work. And it sometimes brings synthetic memories, but most of the time is just using different softwares.
Thank you.
If we have maybe 5 more minutes, Pau, I would like to formulate a question also for you. You have shown us here some examples where you have recreated images of happy or nostalgic memories of these people. Now trying to connect also with Jewish heritage and Jewish memories. What do you think will be the implications of doing the same exercise, but with sad or even tragic or traumatic memories? What psychological implications might this have for the subjects working?
I think it truly depends on we have actually depicted some very traumatic histories from the civil war here in Spain. And through this process, of course, you have to be very, you have to create a safe space, and you have to understand that this is a therapeutic space. So you have to give privacy, security, and like the sense of understanding that someone needs to express certain memories. And of course, the person that engage in the use of these recreations have to be already open to do something like this and to go to certain places of the memory that maybe otherwise they wouldn't go. So like my recommendation always is just recreate memories. In the case that they want to go there, you have to go there with them. And of course, it's something that is a responsibility also from the part of the caregiver to be strong. Like you cannot start to cry when they, even if it's something that you are feeling and you are super sad about the story that you're telling, you have to be there for the other person. It's not about you, it's about the other person, no? So yeah, like there are like different techniques. Actually, we have a like this booklet that we use for the caregivers that is a kind of a methodology, and we have this whole section that is all the things that can go wrong, right? What happens when someone goes to a place that they didn't want to go? What happens when, and then we have like all like this kind of tree map of possibilities to just help the other person to go out from there. So yeah, of course, like there are like traumatic images that even people don't want to recreate and unless instrumentalize.
Thank you very much, Pau. I would love to know what, for example, Sharon Buenos, who will be giving the next Inspiring Memory session on working with survivors from the Holocaust, might think about all this methodology. Very interesting. I don't know if there are any other questions. If not, unfortunately, I think we have already reached the time limit we had set, and although we could continue talking with Pau for 4 hours, so we have to conclude today's session. I would like to thank all of you for your presence and involvement here today, and I would like to especially thank Pau again for inspiring us and making us dream with these ideas and projects. Thank you for your generosity. I would also like to take the opportunity to greet and thank the members of the AEPJ board present here today: Asuncio Osta, General Secretary, Claude Bloch, Honorary President, and Penina Zilberman, the board member. Before closing, I would like to remind you one last time that next Wednesday, 7th, at the same time, we will have the Inspiring Memory session with Sharon Buenos from Zicaromba Salon, and that you can register on our website. As always, for any question about the European Days of Jewish Culture, I am at your disposal through my email. Thank you very much to all, and have a very nice evening.
Thank you, Federico. Thank you all for your time.
Bye.
Thank you. Amazing.
Bye.